Okay, Boker Tov again, and we're on Mem Aleph Amud Beis. Good morning, Shalom Aleichem. Mem Aleph Amud Beis. Yeah, so we're really on the bottom. Just to back up what we said till now. In the first wide line, Amar Yitzchak spoke about Shtel Shonos. Shonos means these these scarlet threads, and we spoke about Parasar Mishtaleach that the Kohen ties a red string around the head of the Sar Mishtaleach. We said that that'll be a way. First of all, it's distinguishable which is which. It shouldn't get mixed up between it and others. And the other partner about the Sar, which is going to be Shechtel Lifnei Hashem. And also, the main purpose of that string is, like it says, that it should turn white. So it said there's a din to have a red string around the head of the Pasar Mishalech. And Rabbi pointed out there's also a Shnit Halas, a red thread that it says by the Paraduma, which is open pasuk. It says in Parshas Chukas, coming up in a couple of weeks, that when you burn the Paraduma, so you throw into the fire Eitz Erez Ve'ezov Shnit Halas, and then so the Shnit Halas is also the red thread. That's the same thing as over here, the Lashon Shel Zahoris. So there it said that one, I heard that one of them has a shear, one does not. And the Gemara went into it, which one is more reasonable to think that it should have to have a certain minimum size. And the Gemara said Sarah Mishtaleach because you're going to have to divide it. Over there it says that they cut it, the Ish Et, the one who's leading the Paraduma, eventually when he got to the cliff, so he cut the string, half of it he put on the head again, and half he tied on a rock in order that he should be able to see that it turns white, even if the Sarah Mishtaleach, when it gets thrown off the cliff, you might not see what's going on that red thread. So it is going to eventually be divided. Since it's divided, it has to have a certain size. But the one that's thrown into the fire of the paraduma that's being burned, there's no reason why you should have to have a size. The Gemara asked the question that there might be a reason because you might have to have weight in order that it should fall into the fire. So you want it to have some weight. So maybe the size is in order to give it weight. And the Gemara said it's a machlokes tanam. Some hold you don't need that it should fall into the fire, even if it gets burnt up on top of the fire. That's also good enough. The Gemara brought a machlokes the Rebbe and Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon. How come? What's the reason that you're supposed to tie them all together? It means the Eitz Erez, Ezov, Shnit Olas, they're supposed to be wound together with the Shnit Olas. Besides maybe that it also is one of the three ingredients, it's also the end of it, like the Gemara says, there's now the tail end of it is used to wrap around all three of them together. So the Gemara said either because you need an aguda, seems to be halacha, maybe it has to be all bound together, similar to, maybe from the pasuk of Alakach, Rashi says, Taisvis Shannon says maybe because you learn out from Mitzrayim, where over there says Agudasezo, something about being a unit, all of them bound together. So those are the reasons maybe that, so the Gemara says, and the other man that says, Rabbi Shimon says the reason is because it can have weight and fall into the fire. So the one found the machlokas about it, and one holds you do, one holds you don't. So that's what the Gemara said. It comes out according to the one who says you do need weight, then maybe you'd have to have a shear for the string of the paradum also. Just to sum it up, the Gemara said that the Sar Mishlech would need a weight, would need a size, a minimum size, because you have to have, it has to be big in order to be able to cut it eventually into two pieces. And the one of the paraduma would depend if it needs a weight or not. If it needs a weight to fall into the fire, so then maybe also it has to have a minimum size. And if not, then there's no reason to have a size. Whatever you have is good enough. The Gemara also, Aga brought in a machlokus over there, maybe a machlokus of two cases about the fire, kol lachas, kinefefes, it spoke about if the fire burnt it up before it fell in. So we just said maybe it's machlokus tanam if it's kosher or not. The Gemara also had it sound that maybe for sure you do need, you don't need the weight, but or I'm sorry, it does have to come close to the fire. If it's a high raging fire, maybe that's not called. If it got burnt up before it came into the fire, it's not good enough. If it's a low fire in the fefes, then maybe it is good. That's all based on the issue about does it have to fall into the fire or not. So I'm holding three lines. What is it? 3 lines from the bottom. And this is going to be in contrast to the first wide line. Rabbi Yitzchak in the first wide lines, they said he heard about 2 strings. One was the paraduma string, one was the Sar Mishalech string. And now, following that, Kesser Avdimi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Shalosh Shalosh Shamati. I heard about 3 strings. And one is the 2 of the ones that we just spoke about, Achash al-Pav, Achash al-Sar Mishalech, we know about. And also Achash al-Masorah. But Masorah, over there it also says in the Tara process, in the process of how you're supposed to purify the mitzvah, it also talks about 8 erez, Ezov, Shnit Olas. There's also something over there. You have 2 tziporim, 2 birds. You shecht 1 bird, and you take the 8, you dip it into the blood. So there's also a process over there about the Shnit Olas. Over there also talks about a red thread. So now he talks about the size also, but here it doesn't talk about size. Before it just said shiur, it needs a size. It didn't say how big. It just says does it need a size, or there's no shear. Here it is going to say I heard 3 different shiurim. When Avdimi came from Eretz Yisrael, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Shalosh Shalosh Shamati, I heard about 3 strings, Achas Shel Porah, Achas Shel Asar Mishlech, Achas Shel Matzor. And now it says, Achas Mishkal Asar Zuz, Achas Mishkal Shnei Siloim, Achas Mishkal Shekel. So he tells you here what's the weight, how are they supposed to weigh? And it says there are 3 different weights. One is the size of 10 zuz. Zuz is a coin, and there are 4 zuz in a selah. A zuz is the same as a dinner, and a selah has 4. In a selah, there are 2 shkalim. Here it says, in these 2 lines, you have here a selah and a shekel and a zuz. So a selah is 4 zuz, a shekel is 2 zuz. So you could translate the numbers the other ways, but it says 10 zuz, that's like saying 2.5 selah, 2 selah, which is like saying 8 zuz, and shekel, which is like saying 2 zuz. So if we translate it all into the same currency, we would say one of them is 10 zuz, one of them is the weight of 8 zuz, and one of them is the weight of 2 zuz, 10, 8, and 2. Or you could call it 2.5, 2.5, if you talk about the currency of selah. So there are 3 ways for these 3 kind of strings, and Ainli Lefarish, I don't know which is which. So he also says he doesn't know. Rabbi Yitzchak on the second line said over there are 2. One needs a share, one doesn't. He didn't say, and he didn't know which one, and the Gemara figured it out. And now Rabbi Yochanan says, I heard 3 shiurim for these 3 strings, and he told you exact weights, but he also doesn't know which one applies to which. Bottom line, when Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael, first it was Rav Dimi came, and now Ravin, usually they go together. Rav Dimi and Ravin were people who came back and forth from Eretz Yisrael to Babel to tell us the news of the Chachmei Eretz Yisrael. So
excuse me, right now when we have these weights, we didn't know which animal or which one it goes on, right?
Right.
We had the weights, we had a Masorah of the weights, but we didn't know which one goes with which.
We had the 3 issues and the 3 weights, but we didn't know how to mix it, how to draw the lines, which is which. Yes, Ravin Pirsha, Mishmei Rabbi Yonasan, but Ravin came in the name of Eretz Yisrael. He said yes in the name of Rabbi Yonasan. The following, he also goes with the 3 same weights, and he knows which is which. Top line, Shal Porah Mishkal Asara Zuz, V'Shal Sarah Mishtalech Mishkal Shnei Siloim, V'Shal Matzorah Mishkal Shekel. The heaviest one is going to be the one of the Parah Aduma, and the next one is going to be a Sarah Mishtalech, and the Matzorah is going to be the one which is the smallest. Rashi explains here, the Gemara doesn't say the reasons for this, but we had a little bit from yesterday's Gemara, that the reason that a Parah Aduma might have to have a size is because it has to have a weight. If you hold that COVID that you need that it has to fall into the fire, that would be the reason that it should have to be heavy. And here the Gemara says it even has to be bigger than the Sarah Mishtalech. The Sarah Mishtalech string is in order to be able to divide it. Like Rashi says, in order to be able to divide it. Rashi on top says the Parah Aduma is the boya COVID and Shalsar, the boya Chalukah. So that's why he explains the Gemara. The Gemara doesn't say all that. And it might also be different reasons. The other Mefarshim say maybe it's Allah Moshe Masina, whatever. It might be other reasons. But Rashi's going with the reasons that the Gemara already explained. So the Parah Aduma, the reason why it should have to have a certain minimum size is because it has to have weight in order to fall in. And the Sarah Mishtalech would have to have a certain size in order to be able to divide it. As we're going to see, you have to divide it into 2. And the Matzorah doesn't have to have either. It doesn't have to have weight, and it doesn't have to divide it. So therefore, it doesn't have to have any size. But here it does say some minimum. It says, I don't know what the minimum is, but it says that it has to be at least the size of 2 zuz, a shekel, which is 2 zuz. Third line, so before Rabbi Yochanan says he doesn't know, he does say that there are 3 sizes and he doesn't know which is which, but now he does say that this machlokes between these 2 Tanam, Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta against Rabbanan, B'Parah. By the Parah Aduma, Chadama Mishkal Asara, V'Chadama Mishkal Shekel. So the Asara was the biggest share. That was the 10 zuz, that was the biggest share, and the Shekel was the 2 zuz, which is the smallest. We have the 10, call it 10, 8, and 2, or you can call it 2.5, 2.5. So he says that as far as the Parah Aduma is a machlokes if it has to be the biggest share, which was 10 zuz, or it could be the smallest share, which was just shekel. So machlokes not which if it's the biggest or the smallest.
I assume this is the same Rabbi Yochanan that Rabbi Dimi and.
So before Rabbi Yochanan says he doesn't know, and now he's saying there's a machlokes tanam. So how do you imagine? How do you juggle all this? I'm not sure. Before Rabbi Yochanan said that he heard that there are 3 shurim, but he doesn't know what it is. Now he himself, if it's the same girsa, Rabbi Yochanan, so he says there's a machlokes tanam, which the part is supposed to be. Is the part the biggest or the smallest? The simanecha. Sometimes the Gemara just gives you mnemonics how to remember things. It's not anything inherent. It's just a simon to remember. So v'simanecha echad amab v'echad amamet. That's the famous Mishnah that says echad amab v'echad amamet u'van shechav libu l'shamayim both the person who does a lot, the person who does a little, as long as he's doing his best and he's doing it l'shem shamayim, so they get the same credit. So here we're just taking out of context the Gamri, and it means like the most and the least, which the words over there don't mean that at all. It means both if you do more, you do less. But here we're taking it to mean the most and the least, which is just the way to remember. Yeah, we had 3 shiurim of a 10, an 8, and a 2, and we just want to give you the simon that the paraduma, the issue was not the middle one. It wasn't the middle issue, the one about 8, 2 slime. Either there's machlokas which one the paraduma has to be, either the most or the least. So that's the way to remember the most or the least. You could always use the simon whenever you need something to remember that the issue is not the middle one. The issue is the 2 extremes. So you could use this mashal of the simon of echad amar b'echad amamid. Amalei b'yem yem yedifti li Ravina. Lo b'par pligi, ela b'sar mishalech pligi. So he has a different version in this machlokas between Rab Shimon ben Chalafta and the Rabbanan about the most and the least. Well, we just spoke about, is it the 10 zuz or is it the 2 zuz? So first it was quoted in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that this time I'm arguing about the paraduma. Is it the most or the least? Now we had a different version. He said no. They're arguing about the Sarah Mishalech. That one by Sarah Mishalech, one of them said that's the most, one said it's the least. Now he also goes on to tell you a simon, and the simon is not going to tell you about the most and the least that we know already, but he's going to tell you don't think it's paraduma. It was Sarah Mishalech. I'm going to give you a simon to remember that machlokes of Rab Shimon ben Chalafta and the Rabbanan was not about a paraduma, it was about a Sarah Mishalech. Why? Because Ahu Yoma Nachnavshe the Rav Bar Kisi. The day that this machlokes happened in the Mismedrash, Rav Bar Kisi, which we're not familiar with him, he's an Amora, a Talmud Chacham, and he died on that day. So in order to remember that the issue that they argued about was not paraduma, but it was Sarah Mishalech, so they made a simon. On that famous day that they had the machlokes, this Amora died, and Rashi brings down Misa Sadikim Mechaperes, he brings down a Gemara in Moed Katan that the death of Sadikim atones. So Sarah Mishalech atones. So the fact that they had the machlokes, not that there's any connection really, just a way to remember that the day that he died, which was like mechaper, the Misa Sadikim Mechaperes, that's what the issue was in the Mismedrash about something which is mechaper. Paraduma is not mechaper. Paraduma makes purity. If somebody had contact with a corpse, so then you have to have the paraduma, but the paraduma doesn't bring atonement. But Sarah Mishalech brings atonement. That's what it's all about. And they send away the sins. So the same way.
More heavy.
Nothing to do with heavy. No, nothing to do with heavy. That's the way to remember that the machlokus. No, nothing to do with heavy. That's the way to remember that machlokus was about the Sarah Mishalech. The same day that the tzaddik died, that's what they were talking about. What they were talking about, not the death of the tzaddik, but the Sarah Mishalech, something which is mechaper. And you remember over there was a machlokus if it's the most or the least. So it's just a mnemonic, just a way to remember. No shaykhs to the. Maybe in the Kabbalah there's going to be something. Maybe the Ben Ish Chai. I don't know if there's going to be something that's going to be inherent. But the Pashup Shad is just a way to remember how to remember what the machlokus was about. So as far as the reasonings, we just have the 2 things that we were told before. Maybe the paraduma would have to have weight. Maybe the Sarah Mishalech over there, the string has to be cut. Everything else is just like juggle, like whatever, however you could. The reason why you should need more, the reason why you should need less. The Torah doesn't have either. They talk in the bottom. The Chayes Hashem talks about it could be that the whole thing is Gemara law. Maybe it's Allah Moshe Messinai. Yeah, some other svaros also. Maybe maybe you want to make. By the turning it white, it should be very big. People should see it. You should see the red string turned white. Other svaros also might be here besides what the Gemara did say. But that's all the Gemara said. Rashi just goes with these 2 svaros and juggle it around. The Gemara continue. That's the end of the Gemara. So we got up to the first one. I can't utilize my cursor today. So just
excuse me. We're saying that the Seir Hamish how you say Hamish Taleach. It's also the machlokas would be 10 or 2.
Right. The two machlokas between Rab Shimon ben Chalafta and the Rabbanan was not on the paraduma, was on the Sarah Mishalech. So just to have all the names. The names and the opinions. We don't know so much far over here. And again, Rashi told us that the one that's going to say you do need a big share is because it has to be divided, and the one who says that it doesn't have to is because it doesn't have to be divided.
Well, what the Rabban holds?
We don't know. We don't know who else what.
I thought that the Rashi said that the reason you would need a big one is for the kaved. Isn't that the top Rashi? The boy kaved.
Paraduma would need the kaved. By Sarah Mishalech, there's no weight. You're not throwing it any place. Again, the paraduma they throw into the fire. There's a svara to say that you have to have weight. It should be big in order that way to fall. When you throw it, it should fall into the fire. It shouldn't just hang in the air over there, and the fire might burn it up before it falls in. That's as far by paraduma. But Sarah Mishtalech, there's no throwing. You don't throw anything. You tie it around the head. You don't throw it. It doesn't have to fall. It doesn't have
So why would it have to be? Why would it have to be 10?
Yeah, the Gemara said the reason why it should have to be long, not heavy, but long, in order to be able to divide it, because you're going to divide the string later
I
on.
see lechalok.
Halukah, right?
Chalukah.
So those are the two svaras that we have. Rashi just goes with those two svaras, and the rest is just like guesswork, you know. And just to point out that Tesis Shana does bring down other svaras, or maybe even Allah Moshe Messina, without having it. Gemara law, he says maybe it's just a Masorah, and we don't know the reason. So that's the end of that sugya, and it came in because Amisha talks about Lashon Shel Zahoris. The question was, does it have to have a shear? Once we spoke about this issue, so we spoke about also other strings might have to have a shear or not. The Parduma, the Matzorah string. Okay, that just points out that's yesterday, and the Ahmed Beis, the bottom Taisvis, he points out that even though we learned yesterday, there's another string around the neck of the soy, which is going to be Lashem. They also put, according to the Gemara's Pshat, they put a red string on the horns of the soy Mishalech, and they put a red string around the throat of the neck of the soy Lashem in order to be a symbol that's going to be shechted. So he says that's just a technicality, just to remember. So it's not a real din. So there's no, the Gemara doesn't even talk about it. It doesn't say that they are foolish on us. It comes out that we have two on Yom Kippur. So the Gemara doesn't even discuss that one. It's just like a technicality to make a simon to remember which is which.
I don't know if it's a drush or it's a fact that the color would change from scarlet to white, even in the base Mikdash.
Well, that's not talking about the string. That's
a scarlet string. I thought that's what happened.
That's not what we're talking about. What I'm talking about, or not?
Yeah,
I'm talking about the one that's on the neck of the Soy Lashem. That's not the one you're talking about. You're talking about it's not.
No, because the one I thought that.
So it's not talking about the one. It's not talking about this one of the neck of the goat. That's this is just the Gemara said you make a simon that you should know. You shouldn't get mixed up between the two. But the question about what happened with the string, so it does talk about that it went with the Soy Mishtalech. The Gemara is going to talk about that. Originally they put it about a Pesach HaHechal, and then people saw it and they weren't happy for doing it, so they put it on the rock. We'll get to that, but it's not. That's not. He was talking about that there was another string that was on the neck of the Soy Lashem. That was just a technicality, right? Just a simon to remember which is which. Okay, new Gemara. Let's finish with that Gemara, and now we start a new Gemara. Here it is. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. It's the first one on the line is Rabbi Yitzchak. It's about 12 lines down. New sugya. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Shtei Shchita Shamati. It's very similar to the wording of before, like Shtei Lashon Shamati, and I don't know which is which. Here, same thing. It comes in Agav, but it's not going to be mamash attention because it's very much our subject. It's going to be talking about the Shchita of the Par Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol, we said, has a par. So far, he did 2 times Vidoy. Just to back up and just to keep on Cheshbon what we're doing so far. So far, the Kohen Gadol, in the golden clothing, he did the korban tamid and all the regular avodah. Then he changed into the white clothing with the tefillah and everything. He kiddush line, whatever. But in the white clothing, so far he did a vidu and the par in Ulam Olam Mizbeach that was up west to in front of the Beis Hamikdash. He did a vidu on his par. Then he went to the east to do the hagrola, to do the throw the lots on the 2 goats, and then he comes back to the west to do again a second vidu on the par. That's what we learned so far. And then the next mission is going to say that he shechs it. Then he shechs the par, and the blood is eventually blood is going to be taken. Eventually, it's going to take it into the Kodesh HaKadoshim to sprinkle. So the question is it ma'akev if his shchita of the par of his par? The pasuk does say that the Kohen should shecht his bull. It does say, but the question is if it's ma'akev or not. If he didn't, is it kosher or not? That's what the sugya is going to be talking about. But together, it talks about another sugya of the shchita of the paraduma. The paraduma does again to just get a picture. He's not in the Beis Hamikdash. The paraduma, you take the Har HaZeisim. They think they know where it is, Berach, and it's opposite Pesach Hol Moed, and probably a big crowd came. Everybody came to see the paraduma. It happens once every many years, and they said it happens so far 9 times only.
Wow.
So they would go to Har HaZeisim, and over there they would slaughter the paraduma and receive the blood, and then sprinkle it opposite the Beis Hamikdash. It's very far away, but opposite the Beis Hamikdash, and then the ultimate they burn it, and they would throw into the fire also 8 seres vezo v'shni tolas, and they would burn the paraduma. And we'll talk about a lot. We're going to get now next couple of days. We'll be into the sugya of paraduma. There's almost Maseches para. It's all about the paraduma, and we're getting into it now. So the pasuk does say the shechato salafanav. Just to point out that it's coming up soon in a couple of weeks. We'll be in Parshas Chukas, so we'll have when we get there, we'll already be well versed in the lachas of paraduma. So it says in the beginning of Parshas Chukas, they take a paraduma to Mimah. Then it says, give it to Elazar HaKohen. So we're talking about Elazar Cohen. Elazar Cohen is the officiating Cohen. And he should take it. He should slaughter it before him. So we'll just remember that passage. And then it goes further about sprinkling the blood. It says what the Kohen does. They burn it, and then they gather the ashes to get the
So the
paradum.
9 paradigm is included from the midbar also.
Yeah, even the first one.
Two basic
Right.
mikdash.
And then what?
And the 2 basic mikdash.
In everything, right.
It's
So-
like, say, like 900 years, it was 9.
Right. So it says all that in the Mishnah is in Torah. It says over there the 9 that were made. It says which coin did which.
Oh, wow.
So
Aaron HaKohen is still alive when the pasuk says Elazar.
right, he was this gun. He was said by Dabasham Moshe Aaron. So it's the give it Elazar. So Elazar was this gun. He wasn't the Kohen Gadol. He was, and the Gemara talks about in the later generations, do you need a Kohen Gadol? Only that at that generation, the first generation was done by Elazar, who was the Sgan Kohen, like the assistant, and all other generations, subsequent generations doesn't have that. The machlokes in the Mishnah is par if you need a Kohen Gadol or do you need even a Kohen Head is good. There's machlokes if a paradum is only made by the Kohen Gadol or it's even made by any Kohen can do it.
I remember that the Kohen that takes the Mamuneh לעשות את זה, הוא לא חייב את השחיטה. He doesn't have to be.
That's our sugya. That's today's sugya. If you remember it, it's from this daf. This is it. This is it. You remember it from here. This is the sugya. But it's not so simple because the machlokes is coming up. But this is today's daf. So you remember from last time we learned it. That's the subject. So v'shachato solofanav. So the simple reading, if you read the pasuk, like Chaim David said, v'shachato solofanav. I don't want to jump, but the Gemara is going to say v'shachato solofanav sounds like he's not doing it. He should slaughter it before him. Who's the him?
Right.
Him is the Kohen, Elazar. And he, who's the he? Somebody should shecht it. So, I don't want to be opinionated or anything, but the simple wording would sound like the Kohen himself, the officiating Kohen. I'm just going to use the word officiating Kohen because someone's a Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Head, whatever it is, officiating Kohen. So does he have to do the shechita? So the simple words say he doesn't. Somebody else shechts it. So we'll see that. The Gemara's going to bring it.
messed up on the paradum with that.
Yeah, if you mess it up.
He's finished.
Wow, that's a bad thing.
Yeah, okay. So the Gemara starts. Amar Rav Yitzchak. So the Gemara brings it in like more like semantics because since before we said Amar Rav Yitzchak shtei lashonu shamati and I don't know which was which, and here it goes into the issue of shechita. It might have been just a tangent over here, but the truth is that this is pretty much on our target because that's really where we're up to in the seder of the avoda. We're up to the shechita of the par. So it is a nice place. It's going to be a Mishnah in a couple of pages. It's going to say on Mem Gimel Amud Beis Shachoto. There doesn't go into the subject, but it does. But the coming up with Shitas Par Kohen Gadol. But it is nice how the Gemara brings it in with the semantics over here about Omer Rav Yitzchak. Shtei Shchito Shamati. The top line on the screen. Shtei Shchito Shamati. Achas Shel Poro, Achas Shel Poro. Achas Ksher B'Zar, Achas Psula B'Zar. V'lo Yadan Eminai. I heard about two shchitos, two slaughterings, one of paro, one of paro. Paro means a cow, a female cow, which means paraduma in our sense over here. And paro means his bull. What's his bull? The Kohen Gadol's bull. So just the Mark could have written it out a little longer, but it's very short and poetic. Paro means paraduma. Paro means the Par Kohen Gadol of Yom Kippur. So I heard about the slaughterings of these two, the cow and the bull. Achas ksher b'zar, achas psula b'zar. One is kosher by a non-Kohen, one is pasul. When we talk about the non-Kohen by Yom Kippur, it doesn't mean a non-Kohen means a non-Kohen Gadol. It means the Kohen Gadol is supposed to do the whole avodah of Yom Kippur. Does he have to also, is a ma'akev that he has to shecht his bull? It does say in the pasuk he should, but the question is if it's ma'akev or not. So I heard machlokes. One says it's kosher, one says it's pasul. Not a machlokes. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. I heard a difference. One is kosher, one is pasul. Not the machlokes. He just says I heard that one is kosher, one is pasul, and I don't know which is which. You don't know which is which. So that's why Yitzchak finished saying what he's saying, but now the Gemara says that he didn't have, he said that one is kosher, one is pasul. But now Itmar, we learned shchitas paro, these two things, the paraduma and the power of the Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur. Rav Shmuel, there's a machlokes about it. Chadama para psula paro kshera, chadama paro psula paro kshera. So there's a machlokes, and each one says that one is kosher, one is pasul, but it's machlokes which one is which. So we don't have any ideas there. We don't have there's one is kosher, one is pasul, and machlokes which is which. Is the paraduma more kosher and the par Kohen Gadol is pasul if Zar did it, or the opposite? The par Kohen Gadol is kosher with a Zar, and the paraduma is pasul if Zar did it.
Excuse me, Rebbe. With the paraduma, does it also have to be by the Kohen Gadol? When we say a Zar, does that mean a non-Kohen Gadol or does it mean a non-Kohen?
Maybe I said it fast, but I mentioned that in the Mishnah is in in Parah, Maseches Parah, the whole Masechta about Paraduma, there's a machlokas over there if the officiating Kohen is a Kohen Gadol or any Kohen.
That's
Well, leave it
machlokas.
out for there. Call it yeah, but that's not about the shechita. We're talking about like anything. Whatever, it does have to be by the Kohen. The Kohen. Is it a Kohen Gadol? Is it any Kohen? So that's the issue over there. So we won't get into it. The officiating Kohen, the one who's doing the whole process of the paraduma, is he necessary? Is he necessary to do the shechita also?
So here the two zars.
We'll avoid the issue.
We're avoiding the issue, and here the two zars could either mean the same thing, or they could mean who's ever outside of who is
The issue is
Ro'ui
whoever's
to
outside
do
of the
it.
fish. By Yom Kippur,
the
the fish
official.
is
Yeah.
and by Paraduma,
Okay.
wherever he is, he's the Kohen Gadol or not a Kohen Gadol. That's not our issue. But you need that officiating Kohen to do the shechita also. That's our issue. So one is kosher, one is puzzle, and even machlokas which is which. Rav and Shmuel, one says this way, one says that way. The Gemara says Tistayim, the Rav Huda Amar Para Psula. Let's roll up the screen to the top line. Tistayim, the Rav Huda Amar Para Psula. I can bring you a proof that Rav is the one who says that the paraduma is puzzle if a non-Kohen did it. He's the one who's going to say that the power by the Yom Kippur is going to be kosher. I'll prove to you because he says that the one of the paraduma is puzzle. Dam Rab Zera. So sticking over here, it doesn't say it, but he put it stick in Amar Rav. The Gemara puts it in. Dam Rab Zera Amar Rav. Shchitas para bazar psula. Okay, Rav says so beferish. If Rab Zera said it in the name of Rav, that the paraduma, if it was done by a non-Kohen, by a non-officiating Kohen, whatever he's supposed to be, so it's puzzle. So Rav's that opinion. So we have now everything else is dominoes. So we know that Rav holds that by the Par Kohen Gadol it is kosher, and Shmuel's the opposite. Shmuel is the opposite opinion. He's going to say that the paraduma is kosher, and the Par Kohen Gadol is puzzle. Rav explained how come the paraduma is puzzle if the non-Kohen did it, the non-Kohen, the paraduma without the officiating Kohen. Elazar v'chuka shaninu, but over there it says Elazar. Elazar is the officiating Kohen, and chuka over there it says zos chukas Torah, like the Pasha starts zos chukas Torah, and that means that this is the law. If it says that's a word chuk, that's a strong word, and that means that it's making. So you need dafka Elazar. Elazar is the officiating Kohen. In that generation, it was the skan, whatever. We'll call it the officiating Kohen. And it says chuka, which means that it's ma'akev. So the shechit is also ma'akev. So then the more it says, Rav, you should be consistent. If you say that, you take it so seriously. If it says chuka, that it's ma'akev. So by Yom Kippur also it says chuka. The Rav, Maishna, Parah, the Chsiv, Elazar, chuka, Parah, Nami, Chsiv, Aaron, chuka. By the Paraduma, it said the officiating Kohen, Elazar, and it said chuk. So he's saying it's makid. So Parah Kohen Gadol also, it says Aaron should do it, then also says it's chok over there. Chukas olam l'dor rosechem. It says over there also the word chok. So how come you don't think that the shechita by the bull of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur is makid? The answer is, first one on the line is asterisk, shechita lav avodah. That like all kabbalah, shechita is not an avodah. So like always, you have to have a Kohen by Kabbalah, Lachas, Rika, everything you have to have a Kohen. But shechita, you don't have to have. It's like it says in the beginning of Vayikra that it says that V'shachat, and then later it says V'krivu b'nei Aaron. That's what the Gemara learns out. Kabbalah ve'elach mitzvahs kuna, but the shechita could be kosher by a zar. So shechita lav avodah. So the Gemara says, okay, so how come Paraduma is so excited about the shechita? Yachid Parah and Amish. Parah also should say that shechita is not part of the avodah. The Gemara says Shani Parah the kosher b'nei Gabayisi. The whole Paraduma is not a korban. Why a korban? The Gemara is going to explain it in a couple of more lines, but the idea, to say it first, the preview that. By a thing which is an avoda, like a korban. So you could say there's a difference between those aspects of the korban which are an avoda and those that are not. But by paraduma, the whole thing's not an avoda, and it still says you need a kohen. So I'm not going to differentiate the shechita. It's not a regular shechita which we're being done. We're not judging if it's an avoda or not. The whole thing's not an avoda. The Gemara is going to give a nice example. Ehachi paranami. The Gemara asks first one on the line. Shani para the kosher b'dekabayisi. The paraduma is different because the whole thing is not kosher mizbeach. The Gemara calls it kosher b'dekabayis. Usually b'dekabayis means things that are donated for the Beis Hamikdash. That's not that either. It just means that it's not Kedushas Mizbech. It's not dedicated to the Mizbech. So we're not going to differentiate if it's an avodah or not. But first, the Gemara doesn't understand. Well, I've called the Kehu. Is it not a Kolshkin? Is it not a Kal V'chomer? It's even less. If it's not Kedushas Mizbech, then the whole thing should be more lenient. The Gemara explains right away. I'm not Shisha Beit Rabidi. Midadev Amaris Negon. The Lav Avodi or Bayakuna. We find things that you need a kohen even though it's not an avodah, like checking a saras, a nega. You need dafka kohen. It's not an avodah. But the Torah says you need a kohen. You need a kohen. So here also, by paraduma, it's not an avodah. The Torah says you need a kohen. But therefore, we're not going to say the difference if it's a shechita or not. We're not impressed that shechita not avodah. by the korban, the whole thing is an avoda by the Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur. So then we know in general that the shechita is not an avoda, so that's not included in the avoda of Yom Kippur. It has to be done. So a zar also could do it like the whole year. But by paraduma, the whole thing is not an avoda, and you need a Kohen. So there's no reason to say that the shechita should be more lenient. So this was the svara of Rav. So again, what does Rav say? As far as Elazar v'chuka, Aaron v'chuka, yeah, everyone agrees that if it says chok, it's ma'akev. But the reason that he says that by the Kohen Gadol, it's by the avoda of Yom Kippur that it's not ma'akev is because shechita is not an avoda. Mashen came by the paraduma, we don't care that it's an avoda or not. So that's why the Kohen, the officiating Kohen, is ma'akev over there. If Azar is going to do it, it's puzzle. Uli Shmuel. First one on the line is Ubaya Kuna. Uli Shmuel. Uli Shmuel Dama Parab Psula. Now we're going to analyze Shmuel. What does Shmuel get? Shmuel says that Par Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, if he didn't do it, it's puzzle. And he's also going to say that by Paradum it is kosher. That we explained it. It says Lava Avoda. That'll be as far to say that by the Paradum it's kosher because it's not an Avoda. But Uli Shmuel Dama Parab Psula Mashna. Maybe did I say right just now? Maybe I leave out what I just said. Delete that. Well, the small dama par psula ma'ishna par v'chsiv aron v'chuka par nami v'chsiv elazar v'chuka. Shani yasam v'chsiv v'shachat osol lefanav. Shehei zar shochet elazar roeh. So here the Gemara is analyzing Shmuel. Shmuel says by he doesn't, even though usually we say that shechita is not an avodah, Shmuel is not impressed with that. For some reason he says by Yom Kippur it's different. That even though always the whole year round Zar or non-Kohen could do the shechita, but by Kohen Gadol and Kippur, Kohen Gadol. But how come? Because it says Aaron v'chuka, so it's the word chok means that it's makev, and it says over there Aaron, so everything's makev. So how come Paradumi doesn't say that? It says Elazar v'chuka. So now the word means the pasuk shot, like we said, the pasuk. If you read the pasuk simply, v'shachat osal lefanav, that means that somebody should shecht before him. He should shecht before him. So him is the Kohen over there. Someone else are Kohen. That's why we read the pasuk over there that somebody should shecht before he should shecht before him. So it's not to say that he and him is two different people. So isn't that mashma very much that somebody else is shechting and Elazar is just there? The officiating Kohen is there in the presence. It has to be before him, but he's not the shochet. So that's Shmuel's source that by paraduma you don't need the Kohen. You don't need the officiating Kohen.
Only that seems to be that it has to be somebody else. It sounds from the
Okay.
if you're saying this is the pshat.
Okay, no, but yeah, it's true, but it probably is not going to be dafka. Like no reason why the Kohen himself cannot do it. But a nice point. The simple pshat says somebody else shechs it. What does Rav do? Rav doesn't learn like that. Rav says no, he's shechting it himself. The Rav, what does do with this pasuk? That he says that it's ma'akev if you don't have the officiating Kohen. Shelo yasich da'atam imana. The pasuk is saying that it should be lefanav, it should be focused on it. That he has to shecht it himself. He has to shecht it like everything else. He has to shecht it. Elazar, the officiating Kohen has to shecht it. But lefanav means that he should be conscious. He should be focused on it. He shouldn't be thinking about something else. So Rav's not impressed with the pasuk. He doesn't see. How does Shmuel doesn't dash like that? So
Excuse me,
Shmuel-
Rebbe.
Yes.
I'm sorry, we lost you for about 20 seconds. Are you saying lo siach de daita means he shouldn't get distracted?
Right. That even though he has to be the shochet, he has to be the shochet himself. Don't read from the pasuk that he shechs it before him means that it's two different people. The he and the him are two different people. No, the he and the him are the same person. But it means he should shech it before himself. He should be conscious of what he's doing. He shouldn't be distracted. But Rav doesn't see in this pasuk somebody else is shechting it. He has to shecht it himself. So the officiating Kohen has to shecht it by the paraduma. Ushmuel shlo yisich da'atam anali. The Shmuel not agree to that. If according to Shmuel, the Gemara doesn't think that you can see both things in the pasuk. If he's not, if he doesn't see in this pasuk that the Kohen has to be focused on what's happening. So where does he know it from? The answer is there's another pasuk, not by the shechita. When it says that they burn it over there, it says it should be before the eyes of the officiating Kohen. So over there it says he should be focused on it and learn out every place else. So Shmuel says the pasuk that says by the burning it should be done in front of his eyes. That shows on the whole process it should be before him. And Rav says you have to have two psukim. And that's the most kasha of Rav. How come you don't not satisfied with that pasuk? You have to have two psukim because each pasuk wouldn't be able to teach you on the other one. It says by the shechita he should be focused on it. It says by the burning of the paradum he should be focused on it. With shricha you need both psukim. Maybe after the shechita, the beginning of the whole process, that's more reason why you should have to be focused on it, not later. The word avoda is lav dafka. It's not like we said it's not an avoda, but the beginning of the process you think is more important that he should be focused on it, but later on he doesn't have to. And the opposite, because of Rahmana B'Sreifa, Mishum Da'ashtahu de Miskashra Para, Aval Shchita Emolo, Sricha. Maybe the Sreifa is more important because then it's becoming, Rashi says, it's becoming Ephah. What's the whole purpose of this whole process of the Paraduma in order to get the ashes? So now that you're burning it, it's becoming ashes. Maybe that's when he's supposed to be focused on it. But till then, maybe we don't care about it. So therefore, the Pasuk got to say 2 times, both by the Shchita and also by the Sreifa, he should be focused on it. But the Rav doesn't see that somebody else is shechting it. Rav still keeps to his pshat that the Kohen, the officiating Kohen himself is the shochet. The Gemara, one line up from the bottom, Lamute Mai. So Rashi Taisus explains that this is mashma, the fact that it says 2 times, according to the way the Gemara says, it says by the shechita it should be focused, by the burning of the paradum it should be focused. It could, and each one is a chiddush because each one is extreme. This is the beginning. This is when it's becoming ashes. But it could have said it by something neutral, something powerful. And then you would have not had all these extreme possibilities. Why not say someplace else? So it implies that not everything does have to be focused. There are some things that it does not have to be focused. And that's what the Gemara wants to know. Why does it come to say which parts of the whole process does he not have to be focused on? Our Gemara says, Asifas Ephra, Umilui Mayim, Lekidush. So Asifas Ephra means gathering the ashes after they burnt it. So then they have to Vasafish Tahor. It says they have to gather the ashes. And then Milui Mayim means when they fill up water in order to mix the ashes with water, that they take from mine. Fine, they take water and then they mix the water with ashes. The word Kiddush, for some reason, the mixing of the ashes and the water is called Kiddush. That's how you Mekadesh the Ephah. You put the Mekadesh the water, you place the ashes onto the water, that's the way that you Mekadesh. That's called Kiddush. And the whole Maseches Par over there talks about Kiddush the whole time, nothing to do with our kind of Kiddush. Kiddush over there means that you put the ashes into the water. So the Gemara is asking, over there, are you saying that you don't have to be focused? You don't have to be conscious?
Ashes into the water or water into the ashes?
So in the pasuk, it seems to be like contradictory. The question in the drash over there, I think the Allah is that you put the ashes into the water.
Yeah.
But okay, the question Rashi in the Gears here also is question in the Gears. How do you read the Rashi? But I think that's the way you're supposed to do it. But Al Kapana, what the Gemara wants to know, which thing does the Kohen not have to be conscious, not have to be focused on what he's doing? By the gathering of the ashes, he doesn't have to watch it, or by the filling of the water, or by the kiddush. It says the likiddush. If you read likiddush, the last one on the page, milamayim likiddush, then it just talks about filling up the water for the purpose of being mekadosh later on. There's a gear that the Gemara brings down vikiddush. 3 things: asif sefra, milamayim, and kiddush. Kiddush means the actual putting the ashes into the water. But anyway, are you going to say that these things you don't have to have consciousness? Hesach is okay? No, it can't be. Amud Beis. The Mishmeres L'mei said it says that it has to be watched for. The main nida means the sprinkling water. It doesn't mean nothing to do with the nida. The word nida means to throw. So the main nida, the sprinkling waters. So the Mishmeres means it has to be watched. And the Gemara says until it's ready to be sprinkled, it has to be washed. So those things we said before, those things he has to be conscious when they are gathering the ashes and filling the water over there. That does have to be das. Hesach das passes over there also. But by the throwing in of the wood, itzeres, ezov, shnit olas, throwing those things into the fire over there, he doesn't have to be conscious. Lav gufa the para. Over there, you don't need the Kohen to be watching that because it's not the actual paraduma. It's just something thrown into the fire. That was a side point. You can put that in parentheses, those couple of lines. The main point we learned so far was the Machlokas Rav and Shmuel. Just to sum it up so far, that the pasuk says by paraduma Elazar v'chuka, and by Kohen Gadol in Kippur says Aaron v'chuka, and that word should have sounded like it's ma'akev. By the officiating Kohen, by the Kohen Gadol in Kippur, or the officiating Kohen by the paraduma says chok, both of them. So everything's ma'akev. But each one, Rav and Shmuel, both of them have as far as to say that there's an exception. That Rav says, he says what? Rav is the one who says that by the Kohen Gadol over there it's not Makev because by Yom Kippur, because Shchita Lav Avoda. The whole thing of Kohen Gadol of the Yom Kippur Avoda is an Avoda, and that's not an Avoda, so that's not the whole parsha. And Shmuel says that by Paraduma you don't need it, even though everything's Makev, Elazar v'chuka, but since the pasuk says v'shachatu salofanav, so it's mashma. The simple word says that he's not the shochet, somebody else is the shochet. And each one, the rabbi will learn differently. That doesn't mean that. It means that he's shachting himself, but he has to be conscious of it. So we have machlokes. Everyone, just to point out an interesting point, that these are not interdependent. It happens to be that everyone says one is kosher, one is puzzle. They have nothing to do with each other. You could have held both of them a kosher. You could have held both of them a puzzle. It happens to be that everyone holds one is kosher, one is puzzle. But two independent things, nothing to do with each other. It seems to be mikri, coincidental that everyone agrees that one is kosher, one is puzzle. We'll see later on. I think tomorrow there's going to be a third opinion. But so far, everyone knows one is kosher, one is puzzle. The question is only which is which. We're going to pass like Rav. Just point out, we pass like Rav that says that by the Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur over there, it's not makim. And by Paraduma, it is going to be makim. We're going to pass like Rav on both counts. The Gemara continues. Itmar. We're on the third line. Amud Beis. Shchitas para bizarre. Mamash our subject again. The Paraduma. If a non-Kohen, the non-officiating Kohen injected it, is a kosher enough. You have already machlokas Rav and Shmuel. Rabbi Yom Bakshera or Yisra Pacham Psula. So another machlokas. Rabbi holds like who's this? Rav. Is that true? Rav is the one who says that Paraduma is kosher. I got it wrong. That's Shmuel, right? I got it wrong. Rabbi holds like Shmuel that by the Paraduma it's kosher. Basically, the Pach holds like Rav that by Paraduma it's possible. Ula Amar Ksheva Rabbi Lopsula. Two versions what Ula held. Okay, we have just more names added onto the list of who holds kosher, who holds possible. Master Rabbi Yeshua Bar Abba Lasua Rav. Rabbi Yeshua Bar Abba, not a regular Mora. He had a raya from a brisa to support Rav. Rav again is the one who says by Paraduma the non-Kohen is puzzle. Again, he's the one who learns the pasuk, not pasuk pshat. To Shachatu Solofanav, Rav says that he has shechted himself. And now Rabbi Yeshua Rav has a brisa which is going to support Rav that by Paraduma it's going to be puzzle if the officiating Kohen doesn't shecht it. Ainli ala azas meimel shein shen beisha kebeish bein shen el biyom. Here it talks about a woman and at night. So the question is about sprinkling the water. So we could just get a picture, just visualize it, that when they had stations, when people that were Tameh, people that came Tameh Meis, they had to go to get the sprinkling of the Pardu on the third and seventh day. They didn't have to go to the base of English for that. They had places, they had the stations where they would, Tachanat, what would you call it? Tachanat Taza'ah. A place, different stations where they would have the Paraduma water, and people would need it. There was be somebody who would be sprinkling over there. The more talks about there was a window, somebody would be there, people would come in front of the window, and they would sprinkle on them.
So,
like drive-in.
It sounds like the COVID injections that they were
so here they had, it talks about it in Maseches Parah. So there would be stations where they would sprinkle on people that were tummy. So just to get a picture that it can't be at night, it's only open in the daytime. And also, a man has to be the one who's sprinkling. You can't have a woman. The job is not open to a woman. That's what it says so far. That a woman at night, both of these things are not kosher for the one who's sprinkling the water. I only know these two issues about a woman and a night and not kosher only by azos meimeh, sprinkling the water of the paraduma. I know from some source. The Gemara doesn't tell us the source. We're coming in the middle of the story. But whatever it says over there, a woman and night are not kosher for sprinkling of the water on the tummy people. But in nine Rabos, Shchitasa, V'kabolas Dama, V'azaz Dama, V'shreifasa, V'shlachas Eitzeres, V'ezav V'shnitolas. How do you know all these things also are puzzle by a woman and puzzle by night? And now we're talking about the process of making the paraduma. It says slaughtering the paraduma. Really, just to get focused, that's all the Gemara wants from this whole brisa. It's going to say that a woman is puzzled to be sheltered the paraduma. That's what we're going to extract from the brisa. But let's read the whole brisa. How do you know that the slaughtering of the paraduma, receiving the blood, sprinkling the blood, that's the sprinkling the blood on Har Zeis, opposite the base of Mikdash, burning the paraduma, throwing the wood and the azov and the shtitolas into the fire? How do you know all these things have to be dafka done by a man and dafka by daytime? All these things. Not only the sprinkling of the water, but also all these things have to be done dafka by cannot be done by a woman. It cannot be done at night. Talmud Lomar Torah. The word says the word Zos Chukasa Torah. It says the word Torah, and that means everything's all the same. One law applies to all. That same way by the sprinkling of the water. So this too also cannot be done at night, and it can't be done by a woman.
We talk about
Shchita. So we said just now that says shchita. A woman cannot do it. Can't be done at night. Can't be done by a woman. Let's just continue. You might think that also I'm going to include that a woman at night are not kosher to gather the ashes to fill up the water and the kiddush of putting the ashes onto the water. So just again to picture. When you see the paraduma, those big times that it happens, everyone goes to see the paraduma, and after they burnt it, everyone's coming to gather that wasaf ishtahar. Are women also invited to gather the ashes? Here it says, yeah, they could. You might think that women are puzzled to gather the ashes, to fill up the water, and to put the ashes onto the water. No, Talmud Lama Zos. only what it says is possible, but if it doesn't say it, it's not possible. So here it says that a woman at night, also, you could picture the issue on Har Hazeisim that they burnt the paraduma. It was a big process, but then it became night, and they didn't finish gathering all the ashes. Yeah, you can go on into the night also. You could gather ashes at night. Women could be doing it just to get a picture that sometimes it stays clearer with the picture. So you're allowed to have that. You could have that. Women could be gathering the ashes even at night. How do you
This
know
is
that?
still part of the brisa?
Yeah, still the brisa. Tamalama zos. The zos means only what it says, but if it doesn't say it, not. So the word Torah before one line up, the word Torah came to include more inclusive. Everything's possible. And the word zos is coming to minimize, not everything is possible. But how do you know which is which? You have one word Torah, you have one word zos, one is a ribu, one is a mir. How do you know which is which? How do you know to say that the whole list before, Shechita, Kabbalah, all those things are puzzle at night and with a woman? And here you say that gathering the ashes and the water and kiddush, all these things are kosher. How do you know which is which? Since there's an inclusion and an exclusion, we're going to learn out everything, the whole list, something similar to the sprinkling, which Amar is going to say at one point that we do know already the issue of the woman. We know that the halachas about the sprinkling, that we know already. The issue we're really trying to learn out more is about the question of the day and the night. All the Brisa means to say is, I'm going to now say whatever I know as far as a woman being kosher or not. I'm going to now say it goes together, that the issue of night goes together with a woman. If a woman's kosher, it's kosher at night. If a woman is puzzled, then it's puzzled. And then it's not be done at night either. That's what the Gemara says. I'm going to learn out everything similar to sprinkling the water. It means when you sprinkle it onto a person who's tummy. Over there you see that a woman's not allowed to do it. A woman cannot be sprinkling the water. And also it can't be done at night, only in the daytime. So now I make this equation. Let's put it to the top line. All these processes, it seems we know already. That's already a given that it's not kosher with a woman. And now we're just going to say that also is possible at night. It means the brisa, its main purpose is this whole long brisa, it wasn't coming to tell you the dinim about if you need a woman or not. That's not the issue. That we knew already. The question is to say is a kosher at night. That was and all that we're doing is once we know there's a kosher pasuk which says by these things there's a miyat and a riboy. So we're going to say those things which are kosher by a woman are kosher at night. Those things which are puzzled by a woman are puzzled at night. Since we know that shchita, Kabbalah's the shchita, the slaughtering of the paraduma, receiving the blood, sprinkling the blood towards the Beis Hamikdash, burning the paraduma, throwing in the eitzer of shnito last, and all these things you have to have a man. So therefore, ain't sharing elabiyom. It's only kosher in the daytime. But motziani, asifas efra, minimine, v'kiddush. But these three things which we know that a woman could do, a woman could be the one who is gathering the ashes and also filling up the water and putting the ashes onto the water. Since we know that has a leniency that a woman can do it, also it's kosher at night. So that's a long big brisa with an explanation. And what we got out of the whole brisa that the things that are kosher for a woman to do can be done at night. The things that are possible for a woman to do are possible at night. So we're finishing the brisa, and we just remember we started off. This whole thing started off from what is it about sixth line? Masiv Rabbi Yeshua Bar Abba. That this is a brisa that Rabbi Yeshua Bar Abba thought was a raya to Rav. Rav is the one who said that a non-Kohen cannot shech the paraduma. So what do you see in the brisa? Like we're waking up now. Behind my tifta. Top line on the screen. What do you see from this brisa? What do you see in the brisa? The fact that it said that the shechita cannot be done by a woman, that's all you see. So it can't be done by a woman. So you think that it can't be done by a non-Kohen, by a non-officiating Kohen. That doesn't show anything. By sprinkling the water on the people that are tummy over there, you don't need a Kohen, you don't need officiating Kohen. Surely any man can do it. Just because the woman cannot do it does not mean that you need the officiating Kohen. It just is a special psul of a woman. Just because you find that a woman is possible, there's no reason to say that any non-Kohen is a non-Kohen, non-officiating Kohen is possible. It just says that a woman is possible. What are you impressed in this brisa? That you see a woman can't do the shechita of the paraduma, that's all you see. How do you know? How could you expand from that nobody could do it, only the officiating Kohen? Abai says the kasha is the following. Isha my timer, what's the reason that a woman is possible? It means there's no, by all the other things that it says, the Rashi brings down all the psukim that it says by all of them that you need Kohen or a man. But by the shechita, it doesn't say anything. It doesn't say anything. Why? It doesn't say that. Why is a woman not kosher to slaughter the paraduma? Get
I
it
know
more.
he's worried about tahara, tumas nasha. Maybe she should.
A woman is not.
Koretz neither. Maybe.
What is that? If she's starved, she's starved. A woman can be.
How do you know? Maybe like just like Sarah, suddenly she became.
There's no chash. If we'll see that she's tummy, maybe we'll go retroactively for how long ago was she's tummy. But there's no reason to say women are tummy. Women are not tummy.
No, they're not. But
a woman can go to the base
without the warning.
So that's not. We're not we're not making all chash over here. If she'll be tummy, she'll be tummy. But there's no such thing that women are tummy. Women go to the base.
I mean, this is the biggest. This is the biggest getter of tahara.
There's no such thing to say women is tummy. No such.
Only for this. I'm saying because
it doesn't say. It doesn't say. No one says so. It says v'shara. So that's the Gemara's question. It doesn't say any limitation. Other things it says man. It says v'asaf ishtar. You can say that. You can say something about, but it doesn't say anything over here. So where do we get that a woman is not kosher to shechta paraduma? Means here the Gemara is saying a very interesting. We didn't take note of this the whole time. We just spoke about the non-officiating kohen. But just to point out that if you don't need the officiating kohen, there's no difference between a man or a woman. And just like a man can shechta paraduma, maybe a woman can shechta paraduma. So that's what the Gemara is saying. There's no source to say that a woman is not kosher for the shechita besides saying that Elazar is the one who's shechting it. There's no difference here between a woman and a man. And if you say the woman is not good, that's saying why is a woman not good? Because you need Elazar to do it.
I would say Kohen velo Kohenes, lo bat Kohen or bat Yisrael.
I'm not sure what he's saying. It says the officiating Kohen has to do it. He says there's no other reason to say that a woman is not kosher besides saying that the officiating Kohen is the one who's doing it. If you need officiating Kohen, a man is also not any better than a woman. You need the officiating Kohen. There's no other pasuk that it says. That's what the Gemara says. Why is the reason why? Look, you have to beat the psukim. Why is the reason why it's not good? Amar Abaye, Hanu Tifte. Isha my time. Why is a woman disqualified? Elazar v'lo Isha, because it says Elazar is the one who's doing it, which means that the pasuk for Shechato Salafanav, he's reading it. Who's shechting? Elazar himself is the one who's shechting. He's shechting before himself. So if so, Zarnami, Elazar v'lo Zar. If so then just as much like a woman is excluded, so a man is excluded. Adkan. That's the end of the Gemara. It goes on we didn't finish the daf yet, but the new sugya starts now, and it goes on to the Gemara's sugya, so it's really a new sugya. So we stop for now. That's the end of the daf. And what did we get? The first sugya was all about the size of the string, and we had different opinions over there. If it's 10 zuz, there was 8 zuz, there was a 2 zuz, and different shirim over there about the paraduma string and about the Sarah Mishtalech string and about the Matzorah string, different shittas. I think that the halacha comes out like that the Sarah Mishtalech is supposed to be the 2 zuz, which comes out about 40 grams. They say that it comes out in the grams that the string was about the size of 40 grams.
Which is a shekel, which is what we said is
no,
a
that's
shekel.
2 zuz. A shekel is a half is just 2 zuz. This is like 8 zuz. This is 2 seller.
Oh, to sell.
Yeah, 2 seller. So that's I think that's how it comes out about 40 grams. There are other sheets in the Gemara that said it's supposed to be the maximum, it's supposed to be like 50 grams, whatever. And but I think in the halacha that's how we come out. So that was the first sugya, the different shirim of the different strings. And I spoke about 3 of those strings: the paraduma, the Sarah Mishtalech, and also the Matzorah. Taisus points out that the one that go around the neck of the ones which are going to be shechted, there's no lachas about that. It's just a technicality that it shouldn't get mixed up. After that, the Gemara went into 2 issues about the paraduma and about the parakohen gadol. Does the officiating kohen by each one, by Yom Kippur the kohen gadol, by paraduma, whoever that is, if it's a kohen gadol or it's any kohen, is he also responsible to do the shechita? And if he doesn't, maybe it's possible. And it comes out that so far everybody says that one is kosher, one is possible, not necessarily interdependent, but happens to be everyone seems to say that one is kosher, one is possible. The question is which is kosher, which is possible. As a general rule, everybody agrees. Aaron v'chuka, Elazar v'chuka. But it does say whatever it does say is ma'aked. But the shechita, one of them might be an exception. And the reason to say that by Yom Kippur the shechita might be kosher is because it's not an avoda. And just like all kabbalah that the shechita is not, it's shechita ksher b'zor. So even though the Torah says that the avoda has to be done by the kohen gadol, only the avoda, shechita is not an avoda. We have just to point out that a couple of pages ago, many pages ago, we spoke about by the Korban Tamid that the kohen gadol, the Korban Tamid of Yom Kippur, that the kohen gadol kiratzo and somebody else finished off the shechita, the mirek achem. Tais over there asked the kasha that even the para, his bull also is kosher b'zor. Over there, makbid even on the Korban Tamid. Tais says that with Rabbanan at least we all makbid on even the Korban Tamid that the kohen gadol should do. It could be that it's kosher for zar did it. Agamor we paskin like Rav that it is kosher, but the shechita lav avoda. That if a non-kohen would have shechted the bull of the kohen gadol of Yom Kippur, also kosher like Rav. Shmuel didn't hold like that. He said that all about that's done on Yom Kippur. On the other hand, the paraduma also says Allah Zabachuka, but over there, the reason why you might say that the shechita is kosher is because the pasuk is mashma like that. It says, "V'shachat osa lefanav." He shechted before him. Him is the kohen, officiating kohen, and somebody else is shechting it. But Rav says no, it doesn't mean that. He's shechting it for himself, and the officiating kohen has to shecht it also. And the Gemara at the end brings a brisa like that, so it sounds like a pasuk like that, like Rav, not pasuk pshat, that somebody that the kohen himself, the officiating kohen, the lazo, or whatever the officiating kohen is, he has to shecht it also. The point is only to say that he has to not be mesiach das, he has to be focused. The Gemara says he has to be focused on on the shreifa, also on the what did it say over there? I said the shlita and also the shreifa and also asifa sav efra, miloi mayim, the kiddush also. Only that throwing the stick. It's eres that he doesn't have to be conscious about. But as far as the shechita, we come out that the kohen himself has to do it, and the big raya for the brisa was that it says a woman is not kosher. A woman is not kosher to shech the paraduma. If a woman is not kosher, so a man is not kosher. There's no difference between a man and a woman. Look, this the whole point is when it says the shechato salafanav, does that mean the kohen himself, the Allah himself is shechting or not? And this brisa says that the Allah himself is shechting. So therefore, a woman is not good.
Why lashon shachat v'lo shachta?
I guess that doesn't. That a lot of times it says, like it says in the contract, everything it says in the male applies to both genders. That's not going to say each time for shachata. It's not going to. So it says it says a standard lashon. And we got more information over there that the things that are kosher at night by a woman are kosher at night. Those that are possible by a woman are possible at night. And just to have the picture, maybe things are going to change. But so far it says that when they sprinkle the water, they have stations all over Israel to sprinkle the paraduma water on those people that are the tummy. So it was open only in the day, and it was a man doing it. A man, the people the job is open only to men, and also is only open in the daytime. You can't be at night. As far as that's why it says. So far it could be issues about it, but so far that's what it says. As far as gathering the ashes of the paraduma after they burnt it on Har Hazayim, so you can visualize that women are doing it even at night.
Even at night.
Today, a woman could be a shach.
Yes. He was talking about even the paraduma.
Right. Okay, today a woman could do.
It just talks about that if they're sensitive and faint of blood, so then not to. But otherwise, a woman is really kosher to shech also.
My mother's 10th anniversary outside today, so it's opening to
I was invited. Chaim David is. I can't get on the Zoom, so.
Throw it on the screen.
Yeah, it's just a little something because it's 10 years. It's a very, very significant in a way.
Yashikar, everybody. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Excellent teaching.
Well, okay.
Yes, as much as you want, we can finish.
Okay, shalom, welcome everybody. Thank you. Yes, Thank
Just a
you.
shaliach,
Thank you
it's,
so much. Thank you.
tzaddik, it's tzaddik behind the counter. Man.
Shalom. So we're on, I'll just stop the recording.